$1 trillion. Most of us can't really picture a billion. A billion seconds ago was 1994. A billion minutes ago, the Roman Empire was still standing. So a trillion, that's 1,000 billions. It's a number so large the human brain just gives up trying to feel it. On June 12, 2026, one man crossed that line. Elon Musk became the first human being in recorded history to accumulate a net worth exceeding $1 trillion.
And the world's richest man, Elon Musk, has become the world's first trillionaire after investors got their first chance to buy shares in his company SpaceX.
And the question isn't really who he is. You already know who he is. The question is, how is this even possible? And once you understand how it's possible, the second question becomes, should it be? What does a trillion actually mean? Let's start with the number itself, because the scale of this matters. Before June 12, 2026, Elon Musk was already the richest person who had ever lived. He had crossed 400 billion, then 600 billion, then 800 billion. The number was moving so fast that financial news sites were struggling to keep up. Then SpaceX, his rocket and AI company that had been private for over 2 decades, went public on the Nasdaq, and everything changed overnight. SpaceX priced its IPO at $135 per share, valuing the company at approximately $1.77 trillion. It raised around $75 billion, making it the largest IPO in human history, nearly 3 times the size of Saudi Aramco's record 2019 listing. Musk owns roughly 41% of SpaceX. Do the math, and his stake alone was worth over $760 billion that morning. Add his approximately 20% stake in Tesla, and Elon Musk's net worth crossed $1 trillion by the close of that day. By the end of the following week, Bloomberg's Billionaires index put him at $1.23 trillion. For perspective, that's more than the entire economy of Taiwan, more than Ireland, more than Sweden. It exceeds the combined net worth of the next 4 richest people on earth: Larry Page, Sergey Brin, Jeff Bezos, and Larry Ellison put together. All 50 most valuable sports teams on the planet combined, they're worth roughly $353 billion. Elon Musk could buy every single one of them and still have $800 billion left over. So how did one person get here? How wealth like this is actually built. To understand how this happened, you need to understand something most people were never really taught: the difference between earning money and owning equity. Most of us earn money by trading time for wages. You work, you get paid. The relationship is simple and direct. But the people at the very top of the wealth pyramid, they don't work for money. They own things. Specifically, they own shares in companies. And the way those shares grow is completely different from the way a salary grows. Let me break this down. When you start or invest early in a company, you own a percentage of it. If the company is worth $1 billion and you own 20%, your stake is worth $200 million. But here's a critical thing. You don't have that $200 million in your bank account. It's paper wealth. It exists on a spreadsheet. It moves with the market. Now if that company grows to be worth $100 billion, your 20% is now worth $20 billion. You didn't work 100 times harder. You didn't produce 100 times more. The market's perception of what that company is worth changed, and so your world changed with it. This is the engine behind every tech fortune you have ever heard of. Mark Zuckerberg didn't earn his $220 billion by writing more code than other programmers. Jeff Bezos didn't pack more boxes than Amazon warehouse workers. They built companies early, held equity, and watched compounding market valuation do the rest. Elon Musk's salary from Tesla, by the way, $0. He takes no salary. His entire compensation is structured around stock options tied to Tesla's performance milestones. His wealth doesn't come from a paycheck. It comes from the fact that Tesla's market cap has grown from effectively nothing in 2008 to over $1 trillion today. Same story with SpaceX, which started in 2002 with $100 million of its own money from the PayPal sale. For over 20 years, SpaceX stayed private, growing in value with each funding round and government contract, its valuation climbing to $800 billion before it ever touched a public stock exchange. When it finally did go public, the market repriced everything Musk already owned. That's not income. That's leverage at a civilizational scale. The other giants. He is not alone. The architecture of extreme wealth. Now Musk is the extreme case, the historic outlier, but he didn't arrive in a vacuum. He sits at the top of an ecosystem of extreme wealth that has been quietly expanding for decades. Let's look at the people around him because they matter to understanding the system. Second on that list, Larry Page, net worth approximately $257 to $293 billion. He co-founded Google in 1998 as a Stanford research project. Today, Google's parent company, Alphabet, is worth over $2 trillion. Page barely speaks publicly. He hasn't given a press interview in years. He lives on a super yacht. His wealth grew by tens of billions last year while he was doing essentially nothing publicly visible. Third, Sergey Brin, also Google, also $237 billion. Same story. Fourth, Jeff Bezos, around $224 to $251 billion. He started Amazon in 1994 in his garage selling books online. Today, Amazon is worth nearly $3 trillion. Touching everything from cloud computing to groceries to streaming to AI, Bezos stepped down as CEO in 2021 and has spent his time since building rockets and buying real estate. Then there's Jensen Huang, CEO of Nvidia. In 2020, his net worth was $4.7 billion. By 2026, approximately $154 billion. In 6 years, he grew his fortune by a factor of 30. Why? Because Nvidia makes the chips that power artificial intelligence, and the AI boom made those chips the most valuable commodity on the planet. Larry Ellison, co-founder of Oracle, worth around $190 billion. He's famous, among other things, for once buying 98% of the Hawaiian island of Lanai for $300 million. He has pledged hundreds of millions of Oracle shares as collateral for a personal line of credit, meaning he can access massive amounts of cash whenever he needs it without ever selling a single share. Notice anything about this list? 8 of 10 wealthiest people on earth made their money in technology. Most are American. All of them build their fortunes not through salaries, but through equity, through owning large stakes in companies whose values have grown exponentially in the digital age. This isn't a coincidence. It's a structural feature of how the modern economy works, and it's producing levels of wealth concentration that have no historical parallel. The trick: how you become a trillionaire and still don't pay much tax. Here's where it gets genuinely strange. Most people, when they hear that someone is worth $1 trillion, assume that person must be paying extraordinary amount of tax. Surely the wealthiest human being who has ever lived is contributing massively to public coffers, right? The answer is not necessarily, and the reason why tells you almost everything about how extreme wealth functions. Here's a key concept: unrealized gains. When Elon Musk's SpaceX stake goes from $300 billion to $760 billion in value, he doesn't pay a single dollar of tax on that $460 billion increase, not $1. Because he hasn't sold anything. Under current US tax law, you only pay tax on money when you realize it, meaning when you sell the asset and the money actually lands in your account. Until then, it's paper wealth, a number on a screen, and paper wealth in America is not taxed. Now you might say, fine, but he can't spend paper wealth, so what's the problem? This is where a strategy that tax scholars have literally nicknamed buy, borrow, die comes in. Here's how it works. Step 1. Buy. You build or invest in a company early. You end up with billions in equity, paper wealth that isn't taxed. Step 2. Borrow. You go to a bank and use your stock as collateral for a loan. The bank gives you hundreds of millions, sometimes billions in actual cash, and crucially, a loan is not income. You don't pay tax on it. Step 3. Die. When you eventually die and pass those assets to your heirs, under a provision called stepped-up basis, the tax debt on all those unrealized gains is erased entirely. Your heirs inherit the asset at its current value, with no tax owed on a lifetime of appreciation. The result: some of the wealthiest people in the world are able to well extraordinary lives. Jets, yachts, properties, investments, almost entirely tax-free. And this is not a theory. This is documented. ProPublica, the investigative journalism organization, obtained IRS records and reported that Elon Musk paid zero federal income tax in 2018, a year when his wealth grew by billions. In 2015, he paid $68,000. In 2017, $65,000. For a man whose fortune was growing by billions per year, those are vanishingly small numbers. In the 5 years from 2014 to 2018, Musk's wealth grew by $13.9 billion. His reported taxable income in that entire period, $1.52 billion. His total tax paid, $455 million. A true tax rate of just 3.7% on his actual wealth growth. Larry Ellison, to give another example, has pledged hundreds of millions of Oracle shares as collateral for personal loans, allowing him to access billions in cash without triggering a taxable sale. When Musk bought Twitter in 2022, paying $44 billion, he financed much of it through loans taken against the rising value of his Tesla stock. Again, not a taxable event. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. The question is, designed for whom? The scoreboard. What this wealth actually represents and what it doesn't. It's worth pausing here and being precise about something. Elon Musk's 1.2 trillion fortune is mostly paper wealth. Most of it is freshly public. SpaceX stock that he is legally prevented from selling during a post-IPO lockup period is volatile. It could drop. The number that makes headlines is real in the sense that it reflects market's judgment of what his stakes are worth, but it doesn't mean he has $1 trillion in a vault somewhere. That matters. It also doesn't change the fundamental picture. Because here's what the World Inequality Report 2026, compiled by over 200 economists worldwide, found. Right now, the bottom 50% of the global population, that's 4 billion people, collectively own just 2% of all global wealth. The top percent own 75%. And fewer than 60,000 people, 0.001% of humanity, hold 3 times more wealth than the entire bottom half of the planet combined. Let this settle in for a moment. 60,000 people. You could fit them all in a large football stadium. They own more than 4 billion people. The wealth of billionaires and centimillionaires has been growing at roughly 8% per year since the 1990s, nearly twice the rate of the growth for anyone in the bottom half of the income distribution. This isn't a trend that's starting. It's a trend that has been accelerating for 30 years. The lifestyle. What $1 trillion actually looks like in real life. Before we zoom out to the big picture, let's just sit with what this wealth looks like on the ground, because sometimes the most clarifying thing you can do is just describe it. Elon Musk owns a fleet of 4 private jets. His primary aircraft is Gulfstream G650ER, a $70 million ultra-long range just capable of flying non-stop from New York to Tokyo. In 2024, the jet alone flew 355 times. That's roughly once a day. In 2023, his flights racked up $3.2 million in jet fuel costs alone and generated carbon emissions more than 132 times the average person's annual footprint. In early 2025, Musk added a brand new Gulfstream G800 to the fleet, one of the fewer than 20 delivered worldwide at the time. Price tag approximately $75 million. It can fly non-stop from his home base in Austin to virtually anywhere on Earth. And interestingly, Musk doesn't own a super yacht. He's publicly said he'd rather put that money into SpaceX, which, given what happened with SpaceX, may have been the most financially rational decision any human being has ever made. But his peers didn't make that choice. Jeff Bezos commissioned a super yacht called the Kourou in 2018. It was completed in 2023 after 5 years of construction by a Dutch shipbuilder. It is 417 feet long, currently the largest sailing yacht in the world. Cost $500 million. It comes with 3 jacuzzis, a swimming pool, a cinema, 9 stateroom for 18 guests, and a crew of up to 36 people. It also requires its own dedicated support vessel, a 246-foot ship called the Abiona, which cost an additional $75 million and carries a helipad. The Kourou's annual running costs, fuel, crew salaries, maintenance are approximately $25 million per year, every year, just to keep it floating. As of mid-2026, reports suggest Bezos is actually trying to sail the Kourou. Apparently, it's become logistically difficult to manage. The 230-foot masts prevent it from docking in certain ports. Then there's Larry Ellison. In 2012, he purchased 98% of the Hawaiian island of Lanai, all 90,000 acres of it, including 2 four-season resorts, the main grocery store, the only gas station, the community newspaper, and the only known Four Seasons hotel on the island for $300 million. He then spent an estimated $450 million renovating one of the resorts, effectively became the landlord, boss, and local government of an entire island community of 3,200 people. None of this is illegal, none of it is secret. It's all just what having this much money looks like. And when you look at it laid out like this, the private jet fleet flying daily, the $500 million yacht that needs its own support ship, the purchased island with a town on it, you start to understand why people's reaction to the first trillionaire isn't just amazement. It's a question, a genuine one. How much is enough? And more importantly, what does it mean for everyone else? the system, why capitalism produces this, and how it's supposed to work. Know before you walk away thinking this documentary is just a wealth-shaming exercise. Let's actually engage with the other side of the argument, because it's not a stupid argument. The case for allowing billionaires to exist goes roughly like this. Markets reward people who take enormous risks and build things that didn't exist before. Elon Musk risked his entire PayPal fortune in SpaceX in 2002. He nearly went bankrupt. He was sleeping on friends' couches while the rockets were failing. If he had failed, he'd have lost everything. The upside he now enjoys, the $1 trillion, is, in this view, the price of the market puts on the risk he took and the value he created. SpaceX has revolutionized space travel. Tesla accelerated the electric vehicle industry by a decade. The logic of the capitalism says, the bigger the bet, the bigger the payoff. And that logic has produced things, innovations, technologies, companies, jobs. We can debate whether the distribution of the reward is fair. It's harder to argue that no value was created. But here's where the argument runs into trouble. The rules of the game are not neutral. The tax structures, the legal frameworks, the investment laws, these were shaped over decades by the lobbying of the people they most benefit. When the tax code allows unrealized gains to go untaxed indefinitely and erase tax liabilities entirely at death, that isn't a natural feature of capitalism. It's a political choice. The stock market itself has become something that disconnects from everyday economic reality. Between 2024 and 2025, the collective wealth of the top 10 American billionaires grew by $698 billion in a single year during a period when workers globally saw real wages decline. The World Inequality Report 2026 puts it plainly. These divides, it says, are the outcome of political and institutional choices, not fate, not the inevitable result of hard work and smart decisions, choices. The backlash. What happens when the world notices? The Musk trillionaire milestone landed differently than the previous wealth records. It wasn't just awe, there was real anger. US senators and politicians across the spectrum used the SpaceX IPO milestone to call for an immediate wealth tax. The political debate intensified overnight. The New York Times drew a direct parallel between Musk and John D. Rockefeller, who became the first US dollar billionaire in 1916. Rockefeller's $900 million in 1930 represented about 2.3% of the US GDP. When Musk hit $970 billion just before crossing the $1 trillion line, his wealth represented 3% of US GDP. One man. 3% of the entire economic output of the United States. And Musk himself had a complicated year before the triumph. His involvement in the US politics through the Dodge Initiative and the controversy that surrounded it led to a significant consumer backlash against Tesla. Dealerships were vandalized. European sales collapsed. Tesla's stock dropped nearly 50% from its December 2024 peak before recovering. Tesla's own corporate filings acknowledged that political sentiment had become a risk factor for the business. Musk stepped back from the Dodge role in April 2026 to refocus on Tesla, and the stock subsequently recovered. The market had apparently been pricing his political involvement as a liability. The irony is real. The same public visibility that made Musk the dominant figure of the age also became, for a time, his single biggest liability. The bigger question, what does it mean that this is possible? Let me ask you something directly. If one person's net worth can equal 3% of the entire US economy, and if that wealth is largely untaxed and growing faster than the bottom half of humanity's wealth combined, what does that actually mean for the concept of democracy? Think about it. Democracy is built on the principle of one person, one vote, political equality. But if wealth is political power and there's strong evidence that it is, then $1 trillion isn't a financial fact, it's a political fact. Oxfam's 2026 report on global inequality found that billionaires are now 4,000 times more likely to hold political office than ordinary citizens. Their wealth funds political action committees, media outlets, research institutions, and political movements. It shapes the very tax laws that govern how their wealth is treated. The World Inequality Report 2026 found that effective income tax rates rise steadily across most income levels, but then fall sharply when you reach billionaires and centimillionaires. The ultra-rich, as a group, pay lower effective tax rates than the professionals just below them. This is a feature, not a bug, and fixing it, if society decides it wants to, requires political will that would have to push against the most concentrated financial power in human history. What could actually change this? Economists and policymakers have proposed a range of responses. They are not fringe ideas. A global minimum wealth tax on multi-millionaires has been discussed at the G20. A tax on unrealized capital gains above a certain threshold so that paper wealth doesn't accumulate tax-free for decades has been debated in the US Congress. Closing the stepped-up basis loophole so that tax liabilities don't simply vanish at death is a straightforward technical fix. The World Inequality Report calculates that 2% annual wealth tax on centimillionaires and billionaires could raise over $500 billion per year globally, more than the entire GDP of many middle-income nations, without touching anyone who isn't already extremely wealthy. The political obstacles are enormous. The financial interests opposing those changes are, by definition, among the most powerful in the world. There are people who believe that a trillion-dollar individual is a proof that the system is working, that it rewards ambition, risk, and genius at scale. There are others who believe that a trillion-dollar individual is proof that the system is broken, that no single person's contribution to society can possibly justify this concentration of resources while billions live in poverty. The facts, at least, are clear. What we do with them is a choice. In 1916, when John D. Rockefeller became the world's first billionaire, commentators call it unimaginable. People genuinely struggle to picture that kind of wealth. 110 years later, we have the first trillionaire. The number is new. The question it raises are old. Who gets to accumulate this much? How does the system allow it? And maybe most importantly, who decided that this is just how things work? Because it wasn't nature, it wasn't gravity, it was a series of laws and tax codes and policy choices made by human beings, and human beings can change them.